Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera buat kita semuanya. Ini kuliah yang aneh sekali sebetulnya. Karena ada kuliah yang dimulai dengan kata-kata manis seperti Fuji Color film, lebih bagus dari aslinya. Walau demikian saya ucap terima kasih Pak Amaloka buat kata-kata yang cantik sekali. Jarang sekali orang ITB bisa ngomong cantik seperti itu. Terima kasih Pak Nur Pamuji dan terima kasih Adinda Norman Ganto. Memang ini juga kuliah yang aneh juga gitu ya, karena ini kuliah biasa saja sebetulnya. Tapi Pak Wapres berkenan hadir. Saya jadi kagok ini. Karena apa yang saya mau ceritakan nih Wapres tahu gitu ya. Jadi Pak Wapres nanti kalau saya kehilangan kata-kata saya akan lihat Bapak, lalu Bapak mesti nyambung gitu Pak ya. With your permission Pak Wakil Presiden, may I deliver my lecture in English to honor our friends, Professor Aun from Northeastern, Professor Don Juan, and a number of Excellency ambassadors. I see my best friend from Norway, my best friends from Norway, from Finland, from New Zealand, and these are the countries that significantly support our reconstruction in Aceh, as well as supporting our effort in reducing the emission. As our President already mentioned that we want to reduce our emission by 41%. But this lecture is not about emission. The third strange thing about this lecture is basically, I don't know whether it's a lecture or a love story, but for sure this is a story of my life. A very long love affair with decision sciences. It started in the late 60s. I was a mechanical engineer, a student, and my professor, Professor Matthias Aruf, in 1968 introduced me to this body of knowledge. He's sitting in front. I'm so happy to see you, Professor. You don't look old at all, although you're sitting in a wheelchair. But I still remember you in 1968 in a very small classroom. Students were only four students. So this body of knowledge is not very popular, or maybe it's because he just introduced it. He just arrived from Cornell, and then he lectured decision theory, and I fall in love with that body of knowledge, and decided that I'm going to spend the rest of my life. And that's true. I want to spend the rest of my life in decision sciences. So that is actually the beginning of the story that I'm going to tell you this afternoon. My life with decision sciences and how this decision sciences basically influence everything that were with me in the past 45 years. What is decision sciences? It's a very simple body of knowledge, very simple knowledge. That's why I love it. It's about consequences. It's about choices with consequences. You have to pick a choice, and it will give you the least unlikely consequences or the best consequence that you would like to have in the future, quote unquote. At the end, is the one, the best choice is the one you pick, because it will give you the best consequences if it's positive. If it's negative, then the least likely consequence. But it's not only about that. In my life, the consequences is also related with delivery. So basically, life is about picking choices and delivery. If there's no choice, if there's no consequences, and you don't have to deliver, then basically life is very dull. Life is interesting because actually you're gambling with your life. You have to pick choice, a right choice, and the history will tell you whether that is indeed the right choice or the best choice. But delivery is the word that we believe will direct us toward the best choice. Delivery and decision is one thing that is really closely related. Ladies and gentlemen, going into a little bit more detail, but don't worry, I'm going to tell about this dull stuff only for 10 minutes, okay? And after that, maybe something that's more interesting. Next, please. That's very dull, right? But this is what Professor Matthias, teach me 45 years ago. I don't know why I fell in love with this kind of stuff, okay? Basically, you have a question, and then you have a number of strategy. And then, based on that, you pick one of the strategy based on the maximum expected value that gives you at the end of the whole process. There will be event 1 and probability. Life is full with probability. What is the probability, Excellency Stick, that today I'm going to announce that the President decree on the agency of Red Plus is finally out there, okay? What is the probability for that, okay? So that is something, well, I tell it's 1 now, but this morning it's maybe 0.5, okay? So you see, it's just a matter of 5 hours, it changed from 0.5 to 1.0, okay? Life is interesting, isn't it? So this is our life. Every day we are faced with questions. Every day we are faced with choices. Every day you have to make a bet. What is the probability of this or that? Pak Agus, every morning you watch Bloomberg, I believe you make some guesses, okay? What's the exchange rate of today, right? So life is interesting. Next. But when it comes to exchange rate, I can say that you don't have any enemies. You don't have opponents. Life is becoming very or more interesting if you have opponents, okay? Opponents. Without opponent, basically you're opposing or you're fighting with nature. The nature will give you the outcome. For those who are good in religion, then the nature is Gusti Allah, right? But for those who are more secular, then we say it nature, because when in this kind of setting, if I write down Gusti Allah, it sounds very religious. I'm religious, but not that. When you have opponent, then basically you're in competition. Chess. You play chess, you have a competitor, you're competing with them. You're trying to get a girlfriend, you have enemies, okay? So actually you're competing with somebody else. That somebody else is as intellectual as you are, as handsome as you are, as no money as you are when we were students. Okay, so actually we are facing this kind of situation. When we have opponent, then it can be enemy with opponent, it can be an enemy, he can be hostile to us, then we enter a non-cooperative game, non-cooperative competition. The result will be a zero sum. If you win, you get 1, but if you lost, you get 0. There's no in between. But if you have a friendly game, then you start a negotiation. And the negotiation can come to a conclusion if there's a saddle point. Both parties are satisfied. Or the word now is win-win situation. It's a very difficult process to get a win-win situation. But basically, these are the things that we are facing. If things can be structured, then it becomes very easy. Although it's not always that we can get a solution. Next, please. You see this kind of situation in which you are competing with B for something. Then you're facing somebody, as I mentioned already, as intellectual as you are. Basically, our daily life is always like this. You never have nature as your opponent. You always somebody just like you are. Maybe he's smarter than you. Maybe he's less smarter than you. But basically, you're competing with him. For what? For project, for money, for a promotion, whatever it is. But once you can put it in a frame, in a matrix like that, then we call it that we can structure the problem. Now, it's A with B, and both of us, both of these players have 3 strategies. Sometimes one has 3 strategies, the other have 2 strategies. Sometimes, but once we have this kind of matrix, then we say that we can structure the problem. Now, the question is, next please. The question is whether there is a solution. But before we reach to that point, then if you have more than one opponent, that's very interesting, right? PLN and DPR, okay? You have many opponents, okay? Political parties, sometimes they are not in line to each other. But if you have common objective, it's okay. But if you don't have common objective, then things be very difficult. Because you are facing multi-games now. In this kind of situation, negotiation is easy. And in this kind of situation, we always say this is a coordination problem because everybody is cooperating. If we have this kind of situation, then you have to try to find out a way such that you active. But if they are split into groups, then you can see that this situation will happen in which you have an objective like this, but this group have another objective, the other group have another objective. I think that is all about the theory. Life is full with this, but when you use it, it's always in the back mind. Question is there any solution? Well, Pak Matias, this is a very beautiful theory, but I can never apply it in real world. Because sometimes, not sometimes, almost all the time, I can say it's very difficult to structure this matrix. And especially if Pak Bud wants to have a meeting this evening, I have to structure the matrix. It's almost impossible to do that. Okay? But, however, if you successful in creating or putting this into a nice matrix like this, question is whether there's solution. Sometimes there's no solution. Political setting has no solution. Especially if people are irrational. If people are irrational, then strange things will happen to you. Look at this real world. How do you solve this problem? This is our life. Traffic jam in Jakarta, Kali Baru, airport Cengkareng. This is our life. In real life, things are very messy, complex. You don't know how the structure. Where do you start solving this kind of problem? I really do hope Pak Jokowi can solve this problem. Okay? With Haji Lulung. He's in competition with that guy. Okay? Very complex, chaotic, infinite, chaotic. That's life. It's very chaos, complex. But we have to live with it. So it's not a once and for all choice. Once you pick that choice, you have to live with it. The good thing is that you can tinker with the choice. You made a slightly bad decision now. Tomorrow, you improve it. The day after tomorrow, you find out there's a little bit deviation in that. Then you improve it bit by bit. That's the good thing, that you can live with it. By doing that, then actually you can try to maneuver. Okay? So it is the good thing as you live with it. But once you make decision, you also have to live with it. Once I make decision to join the convention, I have to live with it. And then if the next week I lost the game, then that's it. I go back to Pak Budiono, please give me a seat in UKP 4. Okay? I lost the convention. Okay? I have to live with it. Okay? That's life. That's life. And if we structure this into a little bit nicer, a little bit nicer diagram, then this is the scheme. Complex, dynamic, infinite, and that's the environment. The environment gives you information and give it to the analyst and support. The decision maker make decision. Now the question is, who is the decision maker and who is the analyst? Sometimes we got difficulties even to find who is the real decision maker here. Everybody is a decision maker. And you get confused and nobody wants to be an analyst because the headline is always for the decision maker. There's no analyst in the headline, in the front line of a newspaper. Analysts should play in the background. And nobody wants to play in the background. And there's feedback information. So if you diagram it, it looks like this. And I was the decision maker during the Aceh time. It all started with this. A coastline of 800 kilometers destroyed. It looks like this. Awful. Just like Hiroshima after it was bombed. As mentioned already, so many thousand people died. No structure. The only existing is France. So that's why I'm so grateful with our friends coming from all over the world who help us there in Aceh. Not only this, there's one part. 800 kilometers of coastline destroyed, 170,000 dead, but there were conflict. 25 years of conflict. This is not the National Army. This is the GAM Army. It looks like this. Red beret, green beret, sometimes with what do you call it, an Nike. This is our army. You see here, everybody is having their own objective. Everybody has their own objective. There's no trust. After 25 years of conflict, for sure, nobody trusts nobody. Even you don't trust your neighbor. Maybe he's a chuak. Chuak is a spy for the GAM. or cuak for the TNI. If your neighbor is a government official, which part does he belong? Is it Jakarta or Banda Aceh? Somewhere else. So there is no trust. So it's a complete lack of trust between all players in Aceh. And we have to resolve this. We have to rebuild in this kind of setting. So the approach, how do you get this trust, at least a political trust from all these players? So these are the things that have been done, and I'm so grateful that I have a very good friend who were the commander-in-chief at the time, and Riartono Sutarto. He gave a very clear signal. Let's have ceasefire, and let's reconstruct, let's rebuild Aceh. A very clear, explicit statement. Let's stop the battle and rebuild Aceh. But that's one side. I have to have also support from the GAM leader. This is Hasan Tiro. He did not give an explicit statement. But this picture in a local newspaper is more than enough. He is smiling. He is smiling to me as if he's saying, son, you go ahead, right? That's more than enough. That is signal. This is information. This is signal. Once I get this, then all the multi-objectives become one. Let's rebuild Aceh. There are so many tangible things that I'm very proud of. But one thing that I'm proud to tell you, that during the 4 years reconstruction time, no one is dead because of firearms. No one get injured because of beatings or badly done by both parties. And that is something that's really important. It's very difficult for me to imagine that one nurse from Norway were killed during that time. The whole support from Western Europe will stop. Maybe from North America as well. If that happens, then it will be hell for us. So that small picture that I show you, this small picture that I show you, is a very significant thing to recollect what's happening and how do you, synchronize the objective. So information and signal. Our life is basically how do you manage information and signals. We live with that. And based on that input, information and or signals, you do something about them. Next. Well, as I explained, this is the area destroyed. You see, people cannot live more than 2 months in a shelter like this. If they have to live in more than 1 year, then chaos. Chaos is always part of the of life there in Aceh. And the numbers is unbelievable high. 139,000 units of new houses have to be built. 60,000 hectares of paddy field. I don't want to go into detail, but this just gives you a glimpse what kind of reconstruction that we are facing in Aceh. And we have to finish it 4 years. Why 4 years? People still have good heart in 4 years. The 5th year, they become just normal person with greed and other normal human behavior. Okay? 4 years is the maximum time of the good heart people. So we have to finish this in 4 years. Next. And with the support of the international community, because as mentioned by Norman already, we have to disburse 7.2 billion US dollar, but our APBN provide only 1/3 of it. So that means that the 2/3 should come from abroad. So there are many records here. That's the first time that you have this kind of huge amount of donation coming from all over the world, and disbursed more than 100%. And no systemic corruption. Well, I'm so influenced by the latest political such that I use the word systemic. Okay? I don't know what systemic means, okay? But basically, I'm so influenced in the past 3 years such that my reaction is always systemic. Okay? 900 international organizations, 40 countries, 9 motherships, 14 warships, 1 hospital ships, many Chinooks, I don't know how much, 8,000 volunteers working in a hostile environment. That's why that picture was very important. With the help of our friends from the international, we get things done. But one thing that is really important, behind these countries, or not behind, with these countries, there is always a flag. Now there's another dimension in negotiation, a flag. A flag is sovereignty. So there's another factor put that makes things more complicated, and that's sovereignty. That gives me a short glimpse toward what's happening in this company, PLN, some 13 years ago, when I have to have next please, I have to have a negotiation to resolve the IPP, in which Python have to be solved and Darajat. But behind all this Python, Darajat, there's always a national flag behind it. We are a US company. My apology to my US friends here. We are an Australian company. So behind all this negotiation, there's always a flag. When there's a flag, then the sovereignty factor enters the negotiation. So this is something that is making things, go back please. Something that's make difficult, go back please. In this kind of situation, because they are here to help us, but behind all this help, humanitarian activity, there is always flag. And all these countries wants to have their flag higher than the others. Next. So, on how to do this, then one thing that really important to understand, we start from this very ambitious objectives, the tangible ones and the intangible ones. The build back better, local government capacity building, democratic environment. We want to have that in Aceh. That is the optimal one. Believe me, in real world, there's no optimum. You have to go to the suboptimal things. But one thing that is really important to understand is that this suboptimal objective should be the one that can direct all these players into one direction. And in the process is always heuristic. So from all this objective, we become redraft the objective into this suboptimal objective, in which the figure is the one that can direct all the players into one objective. Next. Yeah, go next, please. Well, that's it. Welcome to the real world. Even the problem is very difficult for you to define. Now, you see that the process is of very importance. You're surrounded with political environment and other environment. You're surrounded with social structure and dynamics. You're facing with actors who interplay to each other. These are the things that we are facing. And the process is very important. I can tell you that to begin a reconstruction, don't wait for a master plan. There will be no master plan. Just start working. You just start the activity, but bear in mind the next day you'll find something wrong. Then you have to rectify it. It's always like that. Next, please. In tsunami, compared to earthquake or other natural disaster, in tsunami everything is gone. If you're still alive, thanks God. But if you're alive, then you don't find anything. Your diploma is gone, your house is gone, your wedding certificate is gone, your land certificate is gone. Everything is gone. So how do you start? If you have to rebuild an area, then consensus building. Again, you have to have this kind of consensus building. Negotiation is a very tiring process. No, negotiate from day 1, day 2, day 3, until you come to an agreement. And I have to tell them, without any agreement, the reconstruction will not start. And this is the agreement. Maybe it's very difficult for you to see that there are signatures in it. There are so many signatures. And this is the village map. They have to prepare the village map by themselves using this approach. A simple approach, sitting together, praying together, and then start to negotiate. Where's the border of your yard? Where's the road? Where do you want to have the village clinics, the mosque, etc., etc.? Once they make decision, they put their signature. So this is the only document in Aceh. We put it in village, office, and that's it. No more quarrel, let's live with this. Agree, put your signature here. That's the beginning. But not all of them agree. Another village have their own approach. So, depending on the villages, they have different approaches. Let's see the result of this. You see the difference between this part and this part. This is a village that they agree for a land consolidation, meaning rebuild the village based on a proper concept. A wider road, house on stilts, village clinics. While this village, no, we don't want to have that. Just build as our village before. So what's happening now? You see, it is very unorderly. This one is very orderly. But this will be finished 6 months after this one. So they have to wait in a temporary shelter for another 6 months. But after it's finished, all those people here wants to have their village looks like this. How is it possible to do that? And why do they want to have this kind of village? Because the land price, land value goes up 2-3 times than this one. When they've learned their lesson. Okay? One part of the village in Banda Aceh learned the lesson that their property value is 1/3 of this. Well, this is the price of waiting another 6 months in a temporary shelter. Next. There's one thing also that's different with other part in Indonesia, and we make a breakthrough in this, in which when the Singaporean wants to build a pier in Malabo, we just tell them, go ahead, you build the pier. And then the next question, is there any procedure we have to follow? Well, follow your procedure. What about the contractors? Have your own contractors. What? Don't you have any rules and regulation? Don't worry about that. What I want is a pier that can be functioning 9 months from now. So what happened? They built it in 8 months. And I don't care who the consultant is. I don't care who the contractor is. What I care is I got this pier. Once the pier is there, all the building materials can come in and the whole area of western part of Aceh was rebuilt. Thanks for Singapore. There is a small hospital in Chalang. All the beds, röntgen equipment, maybe even the steel structure, come from Spain. Do they have to pay tax? No. Forget about tax. Just put it in. Okay? I want this village by next month. That's it. That's the way we do it. And I'm so proud to tell you that I got the permission from the president. President SBY is the one who gave the permission. Do whatever you want to do, as long as you can finish the reconstruction in 4 years. So there are so many breakthroughs in the reconstruction of Aceh. You can see all these figures, and this is unprecedented. One thing, the NGO succeeded in mobilizing 36% of the 7.2 billion US dollar. Never happened before that the NGO is almost the same, not almost the same, it's a little bit more than the bilateral and multilateral donor. Never happened before. Usually the bilateral is much more than NGO. Those clapping their hands must come from the NGO, right? Next, please. Pak Budiono, this is something that you are familiar with. One day in the year 2008, I was so proud. Just like in a room like this, I announced that the 100,000 house has been built today, and I'm going to donate it to a young man, 13-year-old, named Nasser in a certain village in Malabo. I was so proud. My eyes is glaring. In a sudden, a young man in the corner in the behind raised up his hand and shouted at me, "It's a public lie. You built only 65,000 house. How can you declare that you have already built 100,000? I know that he's lying, but I don't know how to react. The next day in the morning, Kuntoro made a big lie, public lie. 100,000 houses declared, but only 65,000. Now, I was so depressed. But when it comes to public lie, I believe Pak Budiono is more worse than me. Because every time, anybody can say, you made a public lie. You made a public lie. And you cannot attack that. Because what their purpose is to get their name in the front page of a newspaper. And it's the cost for us. Now I'm assisting Pak Budiono. I'm fighting for that. So this kind of sheet in which you want to prove that 100,000 houses has been built, it should be in the museum. Nobody believes this. My very best friend Pak Hasan Bisri, they don't believe this. You can ask a camat to falsify your name. You can ask a lurah and then put her own signature. We don't trust this. And that's the beginning of our invention of using the GPS coordinate. That is the beginning of it. We have to have a mechanism to prove easily to anybody who wants to check the number of houses built in Aceh. Pak Bud, that is the inception of the GPS coordinate, in which now all ministers have to apply this. The GIS system. If you want to check any house in Aceh, you open a website, you open the map of Aceh, and zero in a certain area. Once it's zero in, it will look like this. You see all all the dots here. You zero in a particular area, then this picture will come up, and then you pick to one dot, this picture will come up. A house with a GPS coordinate, with the name of the owner, with the donor agency, can be a Red Cross or Bill Gates Foundation, the contractor, with the picture. Once you have this, no more public lie claim to you. We are entering a new era in which people want to see it by himself, by herself. You should put it on a website, and then that's it. So we are entering this agency, and that's the beginning. That beginning started in Malabo in the year 2007, and thanks for that young chap who played me to announce a public lie. This is something that we are now entering, and we are fighting the public. We are fighting anybody who claims that we are announcing a public lie by doing this. The challenges, these are the things that we have to rebuild, and then this is the result. This is the result, and after 4 years, I can proudly mention that this is the need 4 years before, and this is the result. The Social Sciences is full in the process of getting this figure. Start from the objective up to how do you attack a claim of a public lie like just I mentioned before. So what are the things that we can learn from this? How to fight adequate authorities. Along the way, people keep on exercising their power. It seems to me that when it comes to governing, power, authorities, is only what they are interested in. They don't care about delivery. What they care is, what's my power? What's my authority? Master plan versus bottom-up approach. Sometimes I was wondering whether the government should act or basically to orchestrate. And how do we accelerate the feedback? There's so many feedback coming from people. How do you accelerate this? And whether it should be a coordination or a negotiation. Thank you. It seems to me, Pak Bud, that our life is not with coordination. We should change this coordination into negotiation. It's full with this. We seldom find a good coordination here. But along the way, we have to negotiate. And that is tiring. That is really tiring. Key lesson out of this. Never expect perfect results. It's always suboptimal. The key is that find the mistakes as soon as possible, because you can minimize your cost to rectify. Once you find a mistake, then you rectify it. Flexibility, heuristic. No transparency, no trust. We have to play with signal and information. Inclusion is better planning. And to minimize feedback time, that's the art. How do we minimize feedback time from the ground and then to rectify? And that is flat organization. That's the end of the Aceh reconstruction. And President SBY wants me to help him with Pak Budiono. And that's the second part on how do I see decision sciences in the central government. The big difference is that in Aceh, I was the Prime Minister. Here in Jakarta, I'm the backdoor man. Working for Pak Bud, for Pak SBY. And I'm so proud when he mentioned this next. In the first cabinet meeting, UK before is my ears, eyes, and hands. I'm so proud of that. Because that means that he's going to utilize it. I'm given freedom by Pak SBY and Pak Budiono, not only to implement what we innovate in Aceh, but also to further innovation at the central government level. That is something that is really significant. And the first things with the guidance of Pak Budiono, during the Jambu time. Pak Bud, you must still remember the Jambu Street, in which we developed this diagram. This is the first time, maybe I'm exaggerating, but to my knowledge, this is the first time in Indonesia that we have this kind of, what do you call it, hierarchical of objectives, starting from the president and the vice president. At that time, before that time, SBY and Pak Budiono, when they are doing their campaign to get support from the public. The public give him full confidence, 64%. But at the end of the 5th year, they were asked, what have you done to us? And those are the pledges by these two gentlemen who are our leaders. You elaborate this like this, then you can have a hierarchy of objectives. In Aceh, you have one objective. Here, you have hierarchy of objectives. In a corporate life, things are not very. It's something that's been done, in which you have this kind of things. You have this National Priority Action Plan annually, and you have to check the consistency and synchronization. And this is our function on how to check the consistency from time to time and synchronization. No more friction among ministers. They have to work in line to achieve the objectives. But things are not easy. Excuse me. Another strange thing is that in a kuliah, you never have a glass of water. Next. Here, you have this hierarchical objectives, and you put in a what do you call it, in a diagram like this. Then you'll find the mission, objectives, targets, and criteria. So our president instruction, only for 2 years, we try to elaborate all this. Why only for 2 years? Because the 3rd year we don't need any impress. All ministers are already in line in the process of getting their target achieved. So this is something that's happening in this country, and I'm so proud that I have the chance to support Pak Budiono to come up with this small, diagram, but a very effective one to basically manage the whole country. Next. And all this, what has been pledged by these two gentlemen, our leaders, okay, we reformatted into 11 national priorities. I'm not going to explain about this. But something, we have to start from this. Next. We have to start from this, a simple structure, but when it comes to implementation, things is not easy at all. Just like the Tanah Abang picture. You have the parliament. They can say anything they want to say. Pak Ruli, member of parliament, glad to see you here. But things become very complicated because of this, right? Democracy and decentralization. It is suddenly you realize that a bupati does not give any attention at all to a minister's decree. So actually, who's in charge here in this country? Regional leaders. The ministers, they are very polite, but sometimes they have their own agenda. They are so afraid with those two gentlemen here, okay? But in their back, they're playing their own game. And Indonesia is so big, an archipelago like this. It's so diverse. So, I support these two gentlemen with a very high semangat, because I know the difficulties they are facing. The difficulties they are facing in a very complicated nation in the transition to a better democracy, a better decentralization, with a coalition cabinet, and, well, the consequence of democracy is a parliament. Okay? This is very noisy. You read the newspaper today, very noisy. From Sprindik to others, okay? So, things, before this one, please, go back. Things that has to be very simple like this, becoming very complicated. Next. Should be simple like this, becoming very complicated. This is a diagram of the cabinet. President, Vice President, ministers, governors, bupati should be in line, should be synchronized everything. But that's not the case. It looks more like this. Things are not easy. You have to manage the chariot. You have only 4 horses here. You can imagine what is sais in English, okay? Sais, kusir. Can you imagine the kusir with 34 horses? Things become very difficult, right? And all these horses have different colors, okay? This makes life very colorful. Okay? It's not easy at all. Negotiation. You have to negotiate with the horses. Okay? And this is the situation here. We have coordinating minister. But I think we have to change it to a negotiation minister. Okay? Not a coordinating minister. You have ministers here. You have governor. You have head of districts and mayors. Okay? Usually, if you have one project under one ministry, things is all right. You never raise your blood pressure, Pak Bud, if it's only one minister. But when it comes to ministers, things becoming more difficult. If it's more than 2 ministers, 3 ministers, and especially they come from 2 different negotiation ministers, things become more complicated. This is state secret, okay? So I'm not going to go into more detail, okay? But if you have a number of ministers with one governor, things becoming close to impossible. Especially if you have head of districts and more than one head of districts. The water project in Umbulan, 16 years, Bu Ani, 16 years. I pray for God that you keep sane and healthy. Okay? Because this Umbulan project will take more time. Umbulan project, dealing with number of ministers, dealing with more than one governor, dealing with close to 6 or 7 head of districts, bupati, and the impossible factor, the DPRD. 6 DPRD, how do you deal with them? Even with 1 DPRD, you got headache. So this is a situation that we are facing. Negotiation. To negotiate with also many actors, it takes 16 years and it's not finished yet. Next. Looks more like this. It's becoming very chaotic. So how do you run? How do you run? How do you coordinate? How do you control things? If it looks like this. And I'm afraid, Pak Bud, excuse me, it looks more like this. All have their own direction. All have their own interest. In the first year, things are a bit okay. Second year, better. With afraid of reshuffle. Third year, better. Fourth year, Pak Bud, is getting headache. And I'm afraid next year will be look like this. Pak Bud, you are the kusir. You have to manage all these horses. I believe nobody envy you in this job. And thanks God, I'm working behind you. I'm not the one in front of you. Okay, so these are the things. These are the things happening. How do you try to synchronize all this? You cannot just give up. You have to do something. Then we introduce the geospatial information system such that no ministers can run away. They cannot lie. The Dirut PLN, he cannot go away. PL2 Pacitan, when are you going to inaugurate this, Pak? The president is waiting for this since 2 years ago. Now it's paying time, okay? You have to finish it now, okay? Or maybe it's finished. This Pamsimas in Kupang, a very critical president. It's done. The next question is there any water in it? You serve a president like that. If you can still have your hair, you're all right. You're all right. So based on this, you cannot run away. And we are playing this very extensively with coordinate. This is the first cabinet in which all of the ministers have to use this coordinate. They understand how they implement it, this coordinate. And the format 8 column, the famous 8 column format in which we have to go into detail. What is the action plan? Who ministers in charge? What other ministry is supporting? What the criteria of success? You go into such detail. The ministers hate this so much. They hate this. Pak Agus Marto hates me because of this. But thanks to you to seeing here, okay, being with us, okay. Because I have to go into detail. I have to go into detail. Every quarter, we have to monitor it. And then, based on this, then we do this. What's in there? That is the construction of floating storage receiving unit, FSRU, in Muara Karang. This is the story of this FSRU. This Muara Karang was built maybe 30 years ago. During the time, the coastline is close there, and the Muara Karang is using seawater as their coolant. As a steam coal power plant. With the widening of the city, then you find all these houses surrounding here. And Jakarta wants to have a reclamation project. In a sudden, the Muara Karang, who used to be close to the water, is now in the middle of a land. And nobody wants to make a decision on how to solve this problem. They need, salt water, seawater. They want to change from a steam coal power plant to a gas power plant. So that means the supply of the gas. And sudden, this project that started in sometime before 2010. We locate them and we see this as a bottleneck. We have to debottleneck this. Can you imagine this kind of project should be solved by a minister or a number of ministers? It has to be solved by somebody higher than that. This is just a small project compared to Indonesia. We have so many more complicated projects than this one. Next. Minister of Transport, no permit without AMDAL. Where's the AMDAL? I'm not giving you any permit. Minister of Environment, I will not give you any AMDAL without government recommendation. And who's the government? Isn't he the government? Who's the government? The governor of Jakarta. It's conflicting with my project, reclamation project. And the Minister of Energy, no FSRU, Jakarta will lose 60% of its power. See, this is happening. So who wants to take charge to solve this problem? And we have a very good habit. If you don't solve the problem, or you cannot solve the problem, send it to the president. So I feel sorry to the president and vice president. In a sudden, he has to solve this FSRU, a stupid FSRU project in Muara Karang. But that's happening. But we have to do this. Otherwise, all will stop. Next. My vice president. He gave an order, FSRU, to be finished in 2012. A vice president of a big country like us dealing with FSRU. Unbelievable, right? It should be a director general level. But that's the reality. If you don't do this, then you're going nowhere. Thanks God, he wants to take charge. Set the meeting here. Instruction. Ministers start to work. We have to resolve. We have to start on how do you resolve this. Next. Done. Issues identified in August 2010, FSRU inaugurated in December 2012. Done. President put his signature. And that's because of the vice president. Done. So what's the effect? Results for the nation. Full on stream the 1st September 2013. Just days ago. And because of that, we can save our fuel to $4 million US dollar per day. Can you imagine? This FSRU is not a stupid project at all. But that you have to debottleneck based on a decision in a meeting room chaired by Vice President is unbelievable. Can you imagine the Vice President of the United States of America dealing with FSRU? That's the analogy. That's the equivalent. But that's it. Our life in the past 4 years is full with this kind of things. So I like to proudly mention many down, more to go. Dongki Senoro, Gasfield, finished. Kalibaru, finished. MRT started. Where's Pak Eri? If it doesn't work smoothly, it's your mistake. Bos, Sarula Geothermal, Soekarno-Hatta, you all have the list. One thing, plastic, National Agency of Red Plus, done. Number 62, 2 o'clock today. One map and many more. The essence of this is full with negotiation. And the Vice President has to take care of all this. There are so many things that he should take, but not this one. But that's it. Otherwise, things will stop. Decision sciences have supported all this. Next. But there are many things. So in a real world decision making, these are the things that interplay to each other. One thing that is really core in this is that the information, signal, feedback is something that's really important. If there's a blockage in there, decision maker cannot make decision, analyst cannot have proper information, and the environment will be more and more hostile. Ladies and gentlemen, Pak Bud especially, thank you so much. Thank you, Pak Bud. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The past 4 years is a very tough 4 years. Please. Have a seat, please. Thank you. The past 4 years was the difficult ones. There are so many innovation, there are so many breakthrough, and it's not easy. It's not easy. But with all your support, we have achieved, and we are here. So I'd like to express my thanks for those who make this love affair available, possible. One, to my guru, Mother Guru. Thank you, Pak. You introduced me to this beautiful girl, and I can proudly report to you that I've achieved something for this country. Thank you for that. My second, Professor Freeman, the late Professor Freeman, is my second guru at Northeastern. He gave the values, the courage. One word, get things done. Deliver. Don't look back, just fight. 3, Aun, my promoter. 4, my family at UKP 4 and BRN Aceh. And 5, my beautiful wife of 45 years who accompany me with all this love affair. Thank you so much. So with this, I close my lecture. And thank you so much for being with me. I do hope that you enjoy the story. Thank you.